The day before my sister's wedding, she sent me a text message that shattered my heart into a million pieces. It read, "Stay away from my wedding. Only real family is invited." For years, I had been the one funding her lifestyle, her designer tastes, and ultimately, her dream wedding. But because I was adopted, she decided I wasn't real enough to stand by her side on her big day. I sat in my car, staring at the screen in pure disbelief, before a cold wave of calm washed over me. I texted back a simple, 9-word reply. Fine. Real family can pay for the venue on their own. When our mother read it, she actually laughed out loud, thinking I was bluffing. But I wasn't. The next morning, as the bridesmaids were getting their hair done, the venue manager phoned the bridal suite with some devastating news. My name's Chloe, and at 27 years old, I've finally learned what the word family actually means. For most of my life, I lived under the impression that blood didn't matter, but my younger sister, Harper, spent years proving me wrong. I was adopted when I was just 3 years old. My parents had been told they couldn't conceive, so they brought me home and promised to love me forever. But 3 years later, a miracle happened. Harper was born. From that exact moment, the dynamic in our household shifted completely. Harper became the golden child, the biological miracle who could do absolutely no wrong. I, on the other hand, became the invisible sister, the one who was expected to be grateful just for being kept around. As we grew up, the differences only became more glaring. Harper was handed everything on a silver platter. She got the new cars, the expensive clothes, and the endless praise for doing the bare minimum. Meanwhile, I had to work for every single thing I wanted. I spent my teenage years studying late, working part-time jobs, and eventually building a successful career as a freelance graphic designer. By the time I turned 25, I had bought my own condo and established a very comfortable savings account. Harper, at 24, was still living at home, drifting from one entry-level job to another and relying entirely on our parents to fund her high-end lifestyle. Despite the constant favoritism, I always tried my best to be a good older sister. I bought Harper expensive birthday gifts, helped her pay off her credit card debt, and constantly made excuses for her toxic behavior. I kept telling myself that underneath her spoiled exterior, she truly loved me. I wanted so badly to belong, to feel like a real part of the family, that I was completely blind to how deeply they were taking advantage of me. When Harper got engaged to her boyfriend, Austin, her inner golden child turned into an absolute monster. Austin came from a very wealthy family, and Harper was desperate to match their social status. She immediately started planning a lavish, over-the-top luxury wedding at the Grand Pavilion, the most exclusive and expensive venue in the city. The problem was that our parents simply didn't have that kind of money. When they sat down to review the costs, my mother actually started crying, realizing they couldn't afford the deposit, let alone the full event. Harper threw a massive tantrum, screaming that her life would be completely ruined if she couldn't have her dream wedding. Seeing my parents so stressed out, my heart twisted. I wanted to be the supportive older sister, and I foolishly thought this was my chance to finally prove my value to the family. So, I stepped up. I told them I would handle the initial financial burden. I went to the venue with Harper, pulled out my own corporate credit card, and put down the massive 5-figure deposit required to hold the date. Because my credit score was flawless and I was the one providing the funding, the venue manager had me sign the primary financial contract. I became the sole guarantor for the event. Harper was ecstatic, hugging me and promising that she would never forget what I had done for her. For a brief moment, I felt like I belonged. But as the months rolled on, her gratitude quickly faded back into extreme entitlement. She added expensive catering upgrades, floral arrangements, and premium open bars, all while fully aware that my name was the only one on the hook for the final bill. I was paying for everything, blindly believing her promises of love. As the wedding day approached, Harper's attitude grew increasingly toxic. She began treating me less like a sister and more like a personal bank account, intentionally leaving me out of the fun parts of the planning process. I was excluded from the bridal shower planning, and when it came to the dress shopping, I wasn't even invited. I swallowed my pride, telling myself she was just stressed out. But the absolute breaking point came the night before the rehearsal dinner. I was in my condo, ironing my dress for the next evening, when my phone buzzed on the counter. It was a lengthy text from Harper. As I read the words, the room felt like it was spinning. She wrote that Austin's family was highly traditional and that having an adopted sibling in the main bridal party would cause awkward questions among their high society guests. Then came the final brutal line, "Stay away from my wedding. Only real family is invited." I stood frozen in the middle of my kitchen, the heat from the iron radiating against my face. 22 years of trying to fit in, 22 years of sacrificing my own happiness to make her feel special, and it all meant absolutely nothing to her. The cruel weaponization of my adoption status stabbed me right in the chest. She had happily taken my money, used my credit score, and let me sign the financial contracts, but when it came to actually standing by her side, I was suddenly a stranger. I wasn't her real sister anymore. I was just the inconvenience she wanted to hide away in the closet. The pure, unadulterated coldness of her betrayal completely broke whatever lingering affection I had left for her. I sat there staring at the text, the shock rapidly hardening into a cold, sharp anger. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. Instead, I opened the chat and typed out a simple, 9-word reply. Fine. Real family can pay for the venue on their own. I hit send and immediately tossed my phone onto the sofa. Less than 5 minutes later, it began to ring frantically. It was my mother. I picked up, expecting an apology, or at least some form of frantic damage control. Instead, all I heard on the other end was the sound of her laughing out loud. "Chloe, stop being so incredibly dramatic," my mother said, her voice dripping with amusement and absolute dismissal. "Harper is just stressed out because it's the day before her big day. You know how she gets when she's overwhelmed. You're her older sister, and it's your job to be the bigger person here. Besides, you signed a legal contract with the Grand Pavilion. You can't just throw a temper tantrum and cancel the payment. We all know you're bluffing, so just apologize to your sister. Stay home tomorrow like she asked to avoid any unnecessary drama, and let us enjoy the wedding in peace." She truly believed I was entirely toothless. She thought my need for their validation was so pathetic that I would willingly accept being publicly humiliated and financially ruined all at the exact same time. She hung up the phone before I could even reply, completely confident that she had put me back in my place. But as the call ended, I looked down at the contract paperwork sitting on my desk. They had spent my entire life treating me like an outsider, and now they truly believed I would pay $15,000 for the privilege of being cast aside. They were about to learn a very expensive lesson. The next morning, the sun hadn't even fully risen when I dialed the direct number for the event manager at the Grand Pavilion. I spoke clearly, stating my name and account details, and explicitly instructed them to cancel the authorized corporate payment method on file effective immediately. Because I was the sole primary guarantor on the contract, the manager politely confirmed that the entire pending balance of $15,000 was now flagged as unpaid. Meanwhile, across town in the luxury bridal suite, the morning of the meltdown was just beginning. Harper was sitting in the vanity chair, surrounded by bridesmaids, getting the final touches put on her elaborate hair and makeup, completely oblivious to the storm heading her way. The atmosphere of pampered bliss was instantly shattered when the room's landline phone began to ring loudly. My mother answered it, expecting a standard logistical update from the front desk. Instead, it was the head venue manager, speaking with a polite but completely unyielding tone. He informed my mother that the primary credit card securing the entire event had been legally withdrawn by the account holder. He made it perfectly clear that unless a new, fully cleared payment of $15,000 was processed right then and there over the phone, the entire wedding ceremony and reception would be canceled, and the staff would be instructed to halt all operations immediately. Harper froze in her chair, the color draining from her face, as she listened to my mother desperately arguing into the receiver. My mother kept shouting that there had to be some kind of mistake, demanding they just run the original card again. But the manager stood his ground, stating that Chloe had officially revoked authorization. Harper grabbed her own phone, frantically typing out angry messages to me, but I had already placed her number on block. The realization slowly set in that my threat hadn't been a bluff at all. The bridal suite quickly descended into absolute chaos as my biological family scrambled to fix the mess. Harper was in hysterics, screaming that I was ruining her life, while my mother frantically pulled out her own credit cards. She tried to pay the $15,000 balance, but the first card was immediately declined. She tried a second card, and then a third, but their accounts were already maxed out from funding Harper's expensive lifestyle over the years. They desperately called Austin's wealthy parents, begging for a temporary loan, but Austin's father was deeply traditional and became instantly disgusted by the sudden financial drama. Seeing the family dynamic unravel before his eyes, he flatly refused to bail them out. Downstairs in the main ballroom, the venue staff strictly enforced the contract policy. The moment the deadline passed without a cleared payment, the manager gave the order to shut everything down. The florist stopped arranging the roses, the catering staff turned off the kitchens, and the DJ began packing up his speakers. The dream wedding was systematically dismantled in a matter of minutes. Just 2 hours before the ceremony was scheduled to begin, the head venue manager arrived at the bridal suite accompanied by 2 security guards. With a cold, professional tone, he informed the bridal party that because the contract had been breached, they no longer had legal access to the property. Harper, still wearing her expensive white veil, was forced to watch her bridesmaids grab their bags in embarrassment. The security team escorted my mother, my weeping sister, and the entire wedding party out the side doors and into the parking lot. They were left standing outside in the afternoon sun, completely evicted from the luxury venue they thought they could trick me into buying for them. Over the following days, my phone buzzed with an endless barrage of angry voicemails and text messages from extended family members, all accusing me of being heartless and ruining Harper's big day. My mother left a screaming message saying I was dead to them, and Harper sent an email calling me a monster. But their words couldn't hurt me anymore. The truth was out in the open. They didn't view me as a daughter or a sister. They viewed me as a convenient safety net to be used and discarded. By walking away, I didn't lose a family. I simply stopped allowing myself to be exploited by people who never truly loved me. Austin's family eventually called off the wedding entirely after seeing the public embarrassment and financial chaos, and Harper had to move out of the city to escape the social fallout. Meanwhile, I finally found true peace. I used the money I saved to expand my design business, surrounding myself with real friends who value me for exactly who I am. Setting that boundary was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was also the most liberating. I learned that real family isn't defined by blood or legal papers. It's defined by respect, kindness, and how people treat you when they think you have nothing left to offer them. Now, I'm curious about all of you who have followed my journey until the very end. What would you have done if you found yourself standing in my exact shoes? Would you have swallowed your pride for the sake of family peace? Or would you have pulled the financial plug just like I did? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to mention the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has traveled.